In 166 AD, a terrifying plague hit the Roman Empire. It slaughtered up to 2,000 people every single day. The streets of Rome were overflowing with bodies. The military was completely collapsing. The economy was shattering into pieces. Pure panic was spreading 10 times faster than the actual disease. And right in the middle of this absolute nightmare, Marcus Aurelius did not break. He did not run away. He did not hide behind his massive palace walls. He personally organized the rescue efforts. He paid for the funerals of the poor using his own private money. He kept leading his people with the exact same ice-cold clarity he had on his quietest days. The people around him were completely shocked. They could not understand it. How does a human being watch his entire world crumble to ashes and stay completely unbreakable on the inside? The answer was not some magical strength he was born with. It was not a special gift from the god. It was 8 specific psychological laws. He had aggressively wired these laws into his own brain over years of brutal practice. These laws made it literally impossible for the outside chaos to infect his internal peace. I am going to hand you all 8 of these laws right now, but you must pay very close attention as we go down this list. The first few laws will feel easy to understand, but the final 2 laws are the exact ones that separate the men who survive dark times from the weak men who get destroyed by them forever. Before we get to the first law, you need to understand one brutal truth about mental toughness. Mental strength is absolutely not something you are just born with. It is not a cute personality type. It is not a genetic gift that some lucky people get while you are left completely empty-handed. Mental strength is a brutal construction project, and just like building a massive skyscraper, it gets built one painful layer at a time. You absolutely cannot start by building the roof. You have to pour the concrete foundation first, and then you build your way upward. These 8 ancient laws are that exact construction process. Every single law builds directly on top of the one before it. If you skip one law, the entire building gets incredibly weak. But if you follow them in the exact right order, you will construct a mind that the worst days of your life simply cannot knock down. Law 1. Control what you can and release absolutely everything else. This is the concrete foundation of your new mind. Without this single rule, absolutely nothing else on this list will work. The legendary teacher Epictetus built his entire psychological empire around one single idea. He said some things are fully within our control and some things are totally out of our hands. We only control our own thoughts, our daily actions, and our direct responses. Absolutely everything else is outside of our control. We cannot control what strangers think of us. We cannot control the economy. We cannot control how other people decide to behave. Most people burn 90% of their daily energy obsessing over that second category. They worry sick about things they cannot even touch. They try to forcefully manage situations that were never theirs to control in the first place. That constant, desperate attempt to control the uncontrollable is exactly what drains your mind of all its power. The daily practice for this is incredibly simple. Every single time a problem spikes your heart rate, you ask yourself one fast question. Is this problem actually inside my control, or is it outside? If it is inside your control, you take aggressive action immediately. If it is outside your control, you drop it completely. You do not hold on to it a little bit. You drop it completely. That one single habit will recover more wasted mental energy than almost any other trick on this entire list. Law 2. Choose your response and never produce a wild reaction. An emotional reaction always belongs to whatever triggered it. A calculated response always belongs to you. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have absolute power over your own mind and not over outside events. But that massive power only becomes real in the tiny space between what happens to you and what you decide to do next. Most weak people have absolutely zero space in that gap. Something bad happens and they immediately scream or shut down or spiral into a panic attack. The trigger and the reaction are just one single thoughtless movement. The ancient Stoic practice is to aggressively force a gap into that moment. Take 2 full seconds. Take 5 seconds. Take one massive deep breath. You just need to buy enough time for your rational brain to step in front of your screaming emotions. Ask yourself, what is the absolute best tactical move to make right now? Not the fastest move, not the most emotionally satisfying move. The best move. That tiny pause is a mental muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And a man who has a massive gap between a trigger and his response is a man that nobody can ever genuinely destabilize. But controlling your response is only the absolute beginning. Law 3 attacks something much darker. It attacks an invisible poison that is quietly running all your decisions without you even realizing it. Law 3. Kill the desperate need for approval. This law makes people incredibly uncomfortable because they do not want to admit how much of their life is driven by it. Every single time you make a decision just to perform for someone else, you are losing power. Every time you swallow your real opinion because you are terrified of what people might think, you are getting weaker. Every time you twist your own personality just to fit into what a stranger wants from you, it is a pathetic form of mental imprisonment, and the prison is totally invisible, which is exactly what makes it so incredibly hard to break out of. Marcus Aurelius actually warned his own mind about this. He said he always wondered how a man could love himself more than anyone else but still value the cheap opinions of strangers over his own opinion of himself. He wrote that down because even an emperor felt the dangerous pull of the crowd. Start doing this practice today. Make one specific decision every single day based entirely on your own internal judgment. You make zero adjustments for how people will react to it. You start small and you work your way up. Your goal is not to become a cold jerk who hates people. Your goal is to build an internal compass that is so perfectly reliable that you never need an external compass ever again. Law 4. Embrace the pain before it actually arrives. The ancient leaders never sat around waiting for hard times to test them. They aggressively created their own hard times on purpose, so that real disasters could never catch them sleeping. Seneca used to spend several days every single month living like a totally broke man. He ate the cheapest food, he wore rough clothing, he practiced voluntary hardship. He did not do this to punish himself. He did it as military training for his mind. He told himself to look at the cheap food and ask if this was the terrible condition he was so afraid of all along. When you voluntarily choose to be uncomfortable on a regular basis, two massive upgrades happen to your brain. First, your deep fear of failure shrinks because you just proved to yourself that you can easily survive the worst-case scenario. Second, your baseline level for comfort drops in the best way possible. The small problems that used to make you cry suddenly feel incredibly easy to manage. And a man who finds most problems easy to manage is a man who stays perfectly functional while everyone else in the room is having a mental breakdown. Take a freezing cold shower, fast for a day, sleep on the floor, pick one form of physical pain and practice it every single week. Your mind will absolutely never fear a situation that it has already survived on purpose. These first 4 laws build your iron foundation. But Law 5 is where the real psychological rewiring begins. This is the exact law most people resist the hardest, and it is the one that will completely change your reality. Law 5. See every single disaster as training. This law completely destroys the old relationship between you and your daily problems. Most average people look at a massive obstacle as something terrible happening to them. They see it as an interruption to their perfect plan. They use it as proof that life is totally unfair. And as long as they view the world through that weak lens, every single hard day will drain their soul. It leaves them a little bit weaker than they were yesterday. Marcus Aurelius viewed his problems through a completely different lens. He wrote that the impediment to action actually advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He genuinely believed that every single obstacle was specifically designed by the universe to build the exact mental muscle he needed at that exact moment. It was not a cute coping mechanism, it was his absolute reality. Force yourself to adopt this perspective. Every single time a massive problem lands on your desk, you ask one question: what is this disaster actively teaching me, and what does it require me to become? You absolutely never ask, why is this happening to me? You ask, what is this building inside of me? That one massive shift in your perspective does not magically make the hard work disappear. It actually makes you much larger than the problem itself. And a man who is larger than his problems just walks right through them instead of being stopped by them. Law 6. Never speak more than absolutely necessary. This law is all about raw power. Specifically, it is about the massive amount of power that normal people throw away every single time they open their mouths. Cato the Younger was a legendary leader, famous for his terrifying silence. In the Roman Senate, he was completely surrounded by weak politicians who just loved the sound of their own voices. Cato sat there and said almost nothing, but the exact second he finally decided to speak, the entire room completely froze. Because words spoken rarely carry a massive weight that constant babbling can never achieve. Epictetus said, "It is much better to stay totally silent and let people think you are a fool than to open your mouth and remove all their doubts." Beyond just sounding smart, silence is a massive strategic advantage. It makes you completely unreadable to your enemies. It forces people to hang on your every word when you finally do speak. And it permanently stops you from handing free leverage and ammunition to people who secretly want to see you fail. Make this your new communication rule. Always speak last in every single conversation. You listen completely before you add anything to the table, and you force yourself to cut every single sentence down to half its normal length before you let it out of your mouth. You will be absolutely shocked by how much power that shorter sentence carries in a room. Law 7. Use death as your daily tool. This is the specific law that makes weak people incredibly uncomfortable, but it is also the one that the ancient emperors considered the most important weapon of all. Memento mori. Remember that you are going to die. This is absolutely not a morbid, depressive thought. It is the sharpest, most clarifying tool the human brain has ever been handed. Marcus Aurelius wrote about his own death constantly. He was not depressed. He just deeply understood that a man who keeps his own grave clearly in his mind will absolutely never waste his time. He refuses to waste energy on stupid, petty arguments. He does not hold on to toxic anger. He never postpones his massive goals because that comfortable lie that you always have more time tomorrow has been completely burned away. Spend 30 seconds on this every single morning. You look in the mirror and remind yourself that this specific day will end, and you only have a finite number of days left in the bank. Then you ask yourself what actually deserves your aggressive attention today. The answer you get will always be completely different from the lazy plan you had 5 minutes ago. But Law 8 is the ultimate master key that locks every other law into place permanently. Without this final rule, the first 7 are just a nice list of ideas. With it, they become your actual permanent identity. Law 8. Build an identity that difficulty cannot even touch. This is the law that makes your new mind completely bulletproof. Every other rule on this list is a habit or a daily tool. But this final one is completely different. This is a brutal final decision about who you fundamentally are at your deepest core. It is a decision that never changes, even when your entire world is falling apart. Epictetus literally owned nothing. He was legally owned by another human being. His physical body could be beaten. His freedom could be snatched away at any second. Absolutely everything external in his world was under the control of someone else, and yet he remained psychologically untouchable. It was not because of the money he had. It was because of the man he had decided to become. He built an identity so incredibly deep that no terrible circumstance could ever reach it. He said no man is truly free unless he is the absolute master of his own mind. That level of mastery is not something you magically win one day. It is something you decide right now. You decide exactly what you stand for so clearly that no bad day, no toxic betrayal, and no massive financial loss can ever rewrite your code. Grab a piece of paper today and write down in one single sentence exactly who you are. You do not write what your job is. You do not write how much money is in your bank account. You write who you are. You write down the exact unbreakable standard you hold yourself to, regardless of what chaos is happening outside your window. And then you walk out the door and live from that exact sentence every single day until it stops being words on a page and becomes the blood in your veins. Marcus Aurelius retreated to that exact identity every single morning for his entire life. He survived the plague, the wars, the betrayals, and the death of his children. He just kept returning to that same core decision about who he actually was. And that brutal daily consistency is exactly what made him the most mentally unbreakable man in the history of the ancient world. 8 ancient laws, one final destination, a fortified mind that the absolute worst days of your life simply cannot break. If you are actually ready to stop letting the world control your emotions, hit the like button right now, subscribe to this channel so you never stop building that mental armor, and I want you to make a physical commitment right now before you leave this video. Go down to the comments and type the exact word unbreakable. Make that your permanent declaration that the weak version of you is officially gone.